What is up, A-Pushers? Today we are back with Slotnick Productions, and today we're taking a look at the top 10 worst moments in American history. Alright, let's get started. Coming in at number 10, we have the Monkey Trial. This is also known as the Scopes Trial. This was when a teacher deliberately broke the law in teaching his students the theory of evolution. The teacher was tried and found guilty and eventually fined for his teachings. Now, this came at a time where much of the American culture was against evolution and banned beliefs of it in school. Coming in at number 9, the Salem Witch Trials. Now, this happened in 1692 when the United States of America was not yet a country, but the people who brought up the country were deeply affected by this event which happened. This was when a group of several women were tried and found guilty of witchcraft. But soon this fell out of favor in the fall of 1962, and the public turned away from these hangings. And this deeply affected the public in coming years. Number 8, Watergate. This was the only time in U.S. history that a president has had to resign from office. Had President Nixon not resigned, he likely would have been impeached and found guilty of the Watergate scandal. This was when several burglars had been caught in the White House tapping and stealing documents. Number 7, the stock market crash of 1929. Now, this one was pretty bad, I have to admit. This sent the United States into the Great Depression, which still has effects on us today. Many of the programs which resulted from the Great Depression are still around to this day. Now, during this time, unemployment rates were at an all-time high, and the heavy industry and construction was hit hard all around the world, not just affecting the US, but the entire global economy. Alright, coming in at number 6, the assassination of Martin Luther King. On April 4th, 1968, one of the central figures in the civil rights movement was brutally assassinated. Martin Luther King Jr.'s work had helped the Civil Rights Act get passed. The assassination was seen as one of the largest acts of blind violence in American history. Number 5, African American related Supreme Court cases. The first Supreme Court case that I want to talk about is Dred Scott versus Sandford. This was a case in 1857 that an escaped slave, Dred Scott, cannot be declared as free because he was not a citizen in the United States. Therefore, African Americans did not have any power in the court system, and he was sent back to his owner. This also heightened other slavery laws after this decision. A second Supreme Court case, Plessy versus Ferguson. This was in 1896. Now, this upheld the constitutionality, the idea of separate but equal. And this was not overturned into the mid-1950s at the time of the Brown versus Board versus Education Supreme Court case. Now, although the doctrine says separate but equal, many people living in the time knew that separate was not equal. Many of the establishment's living arrangements and working conditions were just not even for African Americans and whites. Number 4, internment camps. This was during World War II. This was 3 years prior to the dropping of the atomic bomb on Japan. Now, President Roosevelt signed an executive order that put over 120,000 innocent Japanese Americans into concentration camps. This was seen as very hypocritical of a democratic country after fighting off the Germans in World War II. Coming in at number 3, 9/11. On September 11th, 2001, one of the worst attacks in U.S. history happened in New York City. This will never be forgotten by any U.S. citizen and led to heightened security all around the world. This also fueled the U.S. entry into the war on terrorism. Number 2. The dropping of the atomic bomb on Japanese cities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. The purpose of this action was to end the Second World War. But as a result, over 200,000 innocent Japanese citizens were killed, and over 75% of the buildings in these cities were completely destroyed. Now, not only did that have a big effect on the Japanese citizens then, but still has a large effect now, as the half-life of the radiation used is 700 million years, which is practically permanent in those Japanese cities today. Number 1. Slavery. The founding of the United States was based on equality for all people. As we can see here, this was not the case, as African Americans and other minorities were treated as property and not people. This contradicts the stereotypical thought of America's birth, and slavery continued to be a force reckoned with and was one of the root causes of the Civil War. Although the tension between minorities and whites are not as bad as they were back during the time of slavery, slavery still has an impact on Americans today. And that is all for today. Thank you all for watching. Please drop a like in the likes below and subscribe for more videos. Thank you, and this is Slotnick Productions.